The coffee had grown cold in Dr. James Walker's cup, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the holographic display floating above his desk, showing the latest news from humanity's outer colonies. The blue glow from the projection cast harsh shadows across his tired face, making him look older than his 45 years. Colony Beta 7 has fallen, the automated news feed announced in its emotionless voice. Casualty reports are still incoming. The Dominion forces have breached the final defensive line. Walker's hand tightened around the cup until his knuckles turned white. Beta 7 had been humanity's last major outpost beyond the solar system. Its advanced research facilities and shipyards had been crucial to Earth's war effort against the Dominion. Now, like so many others, it was gone. He stood up from his desk, walking to the wide window that overlooked the Earth Defense Initiative's main research complex. The facility, buried deep within the Rocky Mountains, had been his home for the past 3 years. Since Mary and little Thomas, Walker pushed the thought away. He couldn't think about them now. Not about the colony attack that had taken them, or about Thomas's last video message. Excited about his 10th birthday party that would never happen. Dr. Walker. A young assistant appeared at his office door. General Richards requests your presence in the Strategic Command Center. Walker nodded, straightening his lab coat. As he walked through the facility's sterile white corridors, other scientists and military personnel stepped aside, their faces grim. Everyone had seen the news. Everyone knew what Beta 7's fall meant. The Strategic Command Center was a massive underground chamber filled with holographic displays and busy personnel. General Richards, a stern-faced woman with graying hair, stood at the central platform. Doctor, she acknowledged him with a nod. I assume you've heard about Beta 7. Yes, Walker replied, his voice rough. How bad is it? Richards gestured to a nearby display, showing a map of known space. Red dots marked Dominion-controlled territories, while blue represented human space. The red had been steadily expanding over the past decade, but now it was overwhelming. They're adapting to our weapons faster than we can develop them, Richards explained. Their biotechnology lets them evolve countermeasures within weeks. At this rate, they'll reach Earth within 6 months. Walker stared at the map, his mind racing. What about Project Sundering? He asked quietly. The general's face hardened. The ethics committee shut it down last month. They said the risks were too high, that we couldn't control the quantum cascade effects. The ethics committee, Walker laughed bitterly. I wonder if the Dominion has an ethics committee. I wonder if they had moral debates before they. He stopped himself, but everyone knew what he meant. Before they destroyed the colony where his family had lived. James, Richard said softly, using his first name for the first time in years. I know what you lost. We all lost someone. But Project Sundering, the simulation showed it could tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. We can't risk that. Walker looked around the command center, at all the tired faces, at the expanding red dots on the map. He thought about Mary's smile, about Thomas's laugh, about all the other families that would suffer the same fate if nothing changed. What if we could control it? He asked. What if there was a way to contain the cascade effect? The project is closed, Dr. Richards said firmly. Those files are sealed. Don't do anything foolish. Walker nodded slowly, already knowing what he had to do. He had access to an old lunar research facility, officially decommissioned but still functional. He had copies of the project data, and most importantly, he had nothing left to lose. Of course, General, he said. I understand completely. As he walked back to his office, his mind was already working on the calculations. He would find a way to make it work. He had to. Because if humanity didn't develop this weapon first, they wouldn't survive to regret it. The cold coffee sat forgotten on his desk as he began to plan. The abandoned lunar facility was cold and dark when Walker first arrived. His footsteps echoed through empty corridors that hadn't seen human presence in years. Dust floated in the artificial gravity, catching the light from his portable lamps. Power systems engaging. The facility's old computer announced as Walker worked at the main control panel. Lights flickered on one by one, revealing a massive laboratory space. Ancient equipment hummed to life, and holographic displays sputtered before stabilizing. Begin recording. Walker spoke to his personal device. Day 1 at Lunar Site Beta. Most systems are operational, though outdated. Beginning Project Sundering restart. Unofficial capacity. He spent the first weeks setting up his equipment. The isolation didn't bother him. He'd grown used to being alone since losing his family. His only company was the soft hum of machines and occasional status updates from the facility's computer. On the 10th day, something unexpected happened. Walker was running quantum particle simulations, trying to find a way to control the cascade effect that had scared the ethics committee so much. As he watched the holographic model of atomic particles spinning before him, he noticed an unusual pattern. Computer, replay simulation 6, focus on particle group delta, he commanded, leaning forward in his chair. The particles danced again, but this time he saw it clearly. They weren't just splitting. They were creating microscopic tears in space itself. Walker's hands shook as he typed new commands. Adjust parameters. Increase quantum resonance by factor of 10. The simulation changed. The tears grew larger, but instead of spreading chaotically as previous models had shown, they formed a stable pattern. It was like watching a controlled demolition instead of an explosion. This is impossible, Walker muttered, but the numbers didn't lie. He had found a way to control the quantum cascade effect. The weapon wasn't just possible. It was better than anyone had imagined. He worked through the night, running simulation after simulation. Each test confirmed his discovery. By manipulating the quantum resonance field in a specific pattern, he could create tears in space-time that would expand or contract on command. Begin recording. Walker spoke again, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. I've discovered a method to stabilize quantum tears through resonance manipulation. The implications are... He paused, looking at his calculations. The implications are beyond anything we've ever seen. This isn't just a weapon. It's like holding the universe's delete key. As he spoke those words, a warning light began flashing on his console. The security systems had detected an unauthorized energy signature approaching the facility. Someone had found him. Walker quickly encrypted his data and activated the facility's defense systems. Through the main window, he could see a small ship landing on the lunar surface. It wasn't a human design. His heart raced as he watched a single figure emerge from the ship. The spacesuit it wore was clearly alien, with smooth curves and an iridescent surface that seemed to shift colors in the harsh lunar light. Computer, seal all laboratory access points, Walker commanded. Initiate emergency protocol Alpha. But before the computer could respond, a message appeared on his main screen. It was in perfect English. Dr. Walker, please don't be alarmed. I am not here to stop you. I am here to warn you. What you have discovered. I have seen it before. My people called it the Galaxy Killer. We need to talk. Walker stood frozen, staring at the message. After a moment, he made his decision. He had come too far to stop now, but information was information, no matter its source. He would hear what the alien had to say. Computer, he said slowly, open external airlock 1. Let's meet our guest. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss. Walker watched as the alien visitor removed their helmet, revealing a face that was surprisingly human-like, though the skin had a faint blue tint and the eyes were larger, reflecting light like a cat's. My name is Krell, the alien said, speaking perfect English. I was once the lead scientist for the Dominion's weapons division. Walker's hand moved instinctively to the pistol at his hip. The Dominion. Give me one reason why I shouldn't shoot you right now. Krell raised empty hands in a peaceful gesture. Because I left them. Because I saw what weapons like yours can do. And because right now, I'm the only one who can help you avoid destroying everything. You're a deserter? Walker asked, his hand still on the weapon. I prefer the term survivor of conscience. Krell replied. May I? He gestured to Walker's holographic displays, still showing the quantum particle simulations. Walker hesitated, then nodded. He watched as Krell studied the data, those strange eyes reflecting the blue light of the holograms. Just as I feared, Krell said quietly. You've discovered quantum resonance manipulation. We called it the Herald of Dawn. The name was meant to be ironic. What do you mean? Krell turned to face him. 300 years ago, the Dominion was like humanity is now, backed into a corner, desperate for a solution. We developed something similar to what you're working on. The test was conducted in the Centauri arm. I've never heard of it, Walker said. Of course not. It doesn't exist anymore. Krell's voice was heavy. The cascade effect consumed everything. 12 inhabited systems, gone in minutes. The tear in spacetime kept growing. We barely managed to contain it by collapsing 3 stars to create a gravitational barrier. Walker felt a chill run down his spine, but he stood his ground. My calculations show the effect can be controlled. The resonance pattern is stable in simulations, Krell interrupted. Reality is different. Spacetime isn't just a fabric you can tear and mend. It's alive, in its own way. It fights back. The alien walked to the window, looking out at the Earth hanging in the black sky. Do you know why the Dominion attacks other species? Fear. Fear that someone else will develop these weapons first. We became the monsters we were trying to defend against. If what you're saying is true, Walker said slowly, why are you helping me? Why not just sabotage my work? Krell turned back to him. Because you've already discovered it. The knowledge can't be erased, but it can be understood, used wisely, or it can destroy everything you're trying to protect. Walker walked to his main console, looking at the simulation results. Show me, he said finally. Show me what happened in the Centauri arm. Krell pulled out a small device and placed it on the console. A new hologram appeared, showing historical records of the test. Walker watched in horror as the weapon's effect spread like a cancer through space, consuming everything in its path. The choice is yours, Dr. Walker, Krell said softly. But know this, if you continue down this path, you must be absolutely certain. The universe doesn't give second chances with power like this. Walker stared at the simulation for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I need to test it. A small-scale test, far from any inhabited systems. Will you help me make sure it's contained? Krell's cap-like eyes studied him carefully. You humans never back down, do you? Not when our survival depends on it, Walker replied. Very well, Krell said. I will help you, but if anything goes wrong, if the cascade shows the slightest sign of instability, then we shut it down, Walker finished. Together. The alien nodded slowly. Together. Let us hope we're not making the same mistake twice. The test site was an empty region of space, far beyond Pluto's orbit. Walker and Krell had chosen it carefully. No planets, no major shipping lanes, nothing but scattered asteroids and cosmic dust. Their small research ship floated in the darkness, carrying the prototype of humanity's most dangerous weapon. Final systems check complete, Walker announced, his fingers moving across the holographic controls. Quantum resonance chamber is stable. Krell stood behind him, those reflective eyes fixed on the sensor readings. The containment field is ready. If anything goes wrong, it should hold the reaction for exactly 6 minutes. No longer. They had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment. The weapon itself was surprisingly small, just a sphere about the size of a basketball, filled with quantum manipulation technology that had taken all of Walker's knowledge and Krell's experience to create. Launching test unit, Walker said. They watched through the viewport as the sphere moved away from their ship, its surface gleaming in the distant starlight. Distance optimal. Beginning countdown. Wait. Krell placed a hand on Walker's shoulder. Are you absolutely certain about this? Walker thought about Earth, about the Dominion ships getting closer every day, about his family. Yes, he said firmly. Starting quantum cascade sequence in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the activation control. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The sphere just floated there, silent and innocent-looking in the void of space. Then reality cracked. There was no other way to describe it. A line of pure darkness appeared in space, like someone had taken a knife to the fabric of the universe itself. The crack spread slowly at first, then faster, branching out like black lightning. "Containment field holding," Krell reported, but his voice was tense. "Quantum readings are. This isn't right. The cascade is growing too quickly." Walker's screens filled with warning signals. The tear in space was expanding beyond their predictions, consuming asteroids in its path. Each piece of matter it touched seemed to feed its growth. "Shut it down," Krell shouted. "Shut it down now." Walker's fingers flew across the controls, sending the shutdown signal. Nothing happened. "It's not responding. The quantum reaction is self-sustaining." They watched in horror as the tear grew larger, its edges now visible as a massive wound in space. Stars behind it seemed to twist and distort, their light bending impossibly around the edges of the void. "The containment field is failing," Krell warned. 4 minutes until total collapse. Walker's mind raced. Everything they had calculated, all their careful preparations, none of it had predicted this level of power. But as he stared at the readings, a pattern caught his eye. "The resonance frequency," he muttered. "It's not random. Look." He pointed to a repeating wave pattern in the data. "If we can match it, reverse the phase." Krell understood immediately. Together, they began reconfiguring their ship's quantum systems, turning the entire vessel into a makeshift resonance generator. "Field collapse in 1 minute," Krell announced. The tear in space was now massive, filling their entire view with its darkness. Now, Walker activated their modified systems. The ship shuddered as it generated a quantum field exactly opposite to the tear's frequency. For a terrifying moment, nothing changed. Then, slowly, the tear began to shrink. The edges pulled inward, reality knitting itself back together as the opposing frequencies canceled each other out. "It's working," Krell breathed. "But the power drain. Our engines can't take much more of this." The ship's systems screamed in protest as they pushed them beyond their limits. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but Walker refused to stop. Finally, with a flash of light that burned afterimages into their eyes, the tear disappeared. They floated in silence, their ship's engines dead, emergency power barely keeping life support running. The test area was empty now, not just of their weapon, but of everything. A sphere of space nearly 50,000 kilometers wide had been completely cleared of all matter. "Still think we can control it?" Krell asked quietly. Walker stared at the empty space, where reality itself had nearly unraveled. "No," he whispered, "but someone else will try. And next time, we might not be able to stop it." The Earth Defense Initiative's Emergency Council chamber was filled with angry voices. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials all talked at once, their arguments echoing off the underground facility's walls. At the center of the storm stood Walker and Krell, their presence causing both hope and fear. "You're telling us you built this weapon in secret?" General Richards demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "And then tested it without authorization?" "Yes," Walker replied simply. The room fell quiet at his directness. "And now you all need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." The main display showed footage from the test. Everyone watched in silence as the tear in space grew, threatening to consume everything until Walker and Krell barely managed to stop it. "That's what a small test did," Krell added. "A full-scale weapon would be unstoppable." An admiral stood up, his face red with anger. "And we're supposed to trust the word of a Dominion scientist. For all we know, this is a trick to keep us from developing our best chance at survival." "The Dominion fleet will reach Earth in 2 weeks," Richards said, her voice tired. "Our conventional defenses won't stop them." Dr. Walker's weapon might be our only option. Walker looked around the room, seeing the fear and desperation in every face. The weapon works, he said slowly. But its power is beyond our ability to control. One mistake, one miscalculation, and we wouldn't just lose Earth. We'd tear apart the very fabric of space in this entire sector. Better to risk everything than face certain defeat, the Admiral argued. We can't just surrender. Krell stepped forward. You don't understand. The weapon doesn't just destroy. It unmakes. No victory is worth that risk. The debate raged for hours. Walker watched as humanity's leaders argued about whether to use a weapon that could end everything. He thought about his family, about revenge, about all the choices that had led him to this moment. A young scientist raised her hand, speaking quietly. Dr. Walker, you lost your family to the Dominion. You, more than anyone, have reason to want to use this weapon. Why are you arguing against it? The room fell silent again. Walker took a deep breath before answering. Because my family died protecting what humanity stands for. We're better than this. Better than using a weapon that could destroy the universe itself. He pointed to the test footage. Look at what it does. It doesn't just kill. It erases everything. Matter, energy, space itself. We would become something worse than the Dominion. Then what do you suggest? Richards asked. How do we stop them? Before Walker could answer, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the facility. A military officer rushed into the room, his face pale. The Dominion fleet just jumped into the solar system, he reported. They're not waiting. They're coming now. The room erupted in panic. Through the chaos, Walker caught Krell's eye. The alien scientist nodded slightly, understanding passing between them. Listen to me. Walker's voice cut through the noise. I built this weapon. I know its power better than anyone, and I have a plan. But you're not going to like it. What kind of plan? Richards asked. One that might save everyone, Walker said, or destroy everything. The choice is ours. He looked around the room, at the faces of those who would decide humanity's fate. The Dominion attacks because they fear we'll develop weapons exactly like this. They're trying to stop what they think is inevitable. He paused. So let's show them something they don't expect. And what's that? The Admiral demanded. The truth, Walker replied. All of it. Every detail about the weapon, its power, and its consequences. Not just to Earth's leaders, but to everyone. Every species, every civilization, including the Dominion. The room fell into shocked silence as they considered the implications of his words. The Dominion fleet filled Earth's sky like a storm of metal and light. 5,000 ships, their dark hulls blocking out the stars, moved into attack formation. On every screen across the planet, people watched as humanity's nightmare descended. In the lunar facility's main control room, Walker worked frantically at his console. Krell stood beside him, helping to modify the facility's communication array. The quantum transmission network is ready, Krell reported. But the Dominion will detect it as soon as we activate it. We'll have minutes at most. That's all we need, Walker replied, his fingers flying over the controls. Behind them, General Richards and a small team of Earth's leaders watched nervously. The fleet is launching their first wave, an officer announced. Impact in 10 minutes. Walker looked up at the screen showing the approaching Dominion ships. Time to see if they're really as afraid as you say they are, Krell. He pressed a final sequence of commands. The facility hummed as its power systems redirected everything to the communications array. Broadcasting now. Sending the complete weapons data, test results, and quantum formulas to every ship in range. Message is going out on all frequencies, Krell confirmed. They're receiving it. The minutes stretched like hours as they waited. The Dominion ships continued their approach, weapons charge, moving with the precision of machines. Then, suddenly, they stopped. They're receiving the data, Krell said, watching his displays. The fleet commander is. He's ordering all ships to hold position. Walker activated the general broadcast channel. His voice would reach every Dominion ship, every Earth defense station, every surviving human colony. "This is Dr. James Walker," he began. "You now have complete details of the quantum resonance weapon. You can see its power. You can see what it nearly did in our test. And you can see why we chose not to use it." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "We know why you attack other species. You're afraid someone will develop this weapon first. But look at what we did. We developed it, and we're choosing not to use it. We're choosing to share it instead." The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The Dominion Fleet commander appeared, a tall figure with the same blue-tinted skin as Krell, but with ceremonial markings across his face. "You would give your enemies the power to destroy everything?" the commander asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and suspicion. "I'm giving everyone the knowledge of what this weapon can do," Walker corrected him. "Now every species knows how to build it, and why they never should. You've seen our test results. You know what happened in the Centauri arms centuries ago. No one can use this weapon without risking everything. It's mutually assured destruction on a universal scale," Richards added, stepping forward. "If anyone uses it, they risk unmaking reality itself." The Dominion commander was silent for a long moment. His eyes moved to Krell. "You helped them build this." "I helped them understand it," Krell replied, "just as I helped them understand why it must never be used." Another tense minute passed. On the screens, the Dominion ships remained motionless, their weapons still charged. "You realize," the commander said finally, "that by sharing this knowledge, you've changed everything. The balance of power, the rules of warfare." "Yes," Walker replied simply. "That's the point. We can't invent this weapon, but we can make sure everyone understands exactly what's at stake if it's ever used." The commander's expression changed, showing something that might have been respect. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time for our peoples to talk. Really talk. About more than just warfare." Walker looked at the weapon plans displayed on his screen. Humanity's most terrible creation, now becoming its greatest chance for peace. "Yes," he agreed. "I think it is." 1 year after the day the Dominion fleet filled Earth's skies, the great hall of the newly built Interstellar Peace Center buzzed with activity. Representatives from 37 species gathered under its crystal dome, their voices mixing in a dozen different translation fields. Walker stood at a window, watching ships from various civilizations move peacefully through Earth's orbit. Some were Dominion vessels, now serving as trade ships rather than warships. Next to him, Krell studied a holographic report. "The last quantum resonance detector network was completed yesterday," Krell said. "If anyone tries to build or test the weapon anywhere in known space, we'll know immediately." Walker nodded. "And how many attempts have there been so far?" 3, Krell replied. "All stopped before they got too far. It turns out most species are quite reasonable when they understand the full consequences." A small group of alien delegates approached them. Walker recognized the Dominion fleet commander who had faced him 1 year ago, now serving as his people's chief diplomat. "Dr. Walker," the commander said, "the council is ready to begin the session. They're waiting for your report." Walker gathered his notes and followed them to the main chamber. Hundreds of beings, representing civilizations that had been at war just months ago, sat together in tiered rows. General Richards, now Earth's military liaison to the council, nodded to him from her seat. "Dr. Walker," the council head spoke, "please present your findings on the Universal Security Initiative." Walker stepped up to the central platform. Holographic displays activated around him, showing data from across the galaxy. 1 year ago, he began, we faced a choice between destruction and understanding. We chose understanding, and it changed everything. He gestured to the displays. Trade between former enemy species has increased by 400%. Scientific cooperation has led to breakthroughs in medicine, space travel, and environmental protection. He brought up new images, ships being converted from military to civilian use, weapons facilities being transformed into research centers. But most importantly, Walker continued, we've created something unprecedented, a galaxy where the greatest weapon ever conceived brings peace instead of destruction, not through fear, but through shared knowledge and responsibility. The displays showed the quantum resonance detector networks, spanning vast regions of space. Every species now has the knowledge to build this weapon. Every species also has the knowledge to detect its construction. And every species understands that using it would mean the end of everything. We've turned mutually assured destruction into mutually assured preservation. He paused, looking around the chamber. A year ago, we thought we needed the ultimate weapon to survive. Instead, we needed the ultimate truth that our survival depends on working together. The council chamber filled with the various sounds different species used to show approval. Walker caught Krell's eye across the room, seeing his friend's slight smile. There will always be conflicts, Walker concluded, but now we face them with dialogue instead of destruction. We've built something stronger than any weapon, trust based on shared understanding. As the council moved on to other business, Walker returned to his seat. A message appeared on his personal display, a reminder that he was teaching an interspecies physics class later that day. He smiled, remembering how he'd once used that knowledge to build a weapon. Now he used it to build bridges between civilizations. You know, Krell said quietly beside him, your family would be proud. You protected humanity, just not in the way anyone expected. Walker watched as representatives from formerly hostile species discussed joint scientific projects and cultural exchanges. In the sky above, ships from a dozen worlds moved in peaceful patterns, their weapon systems dormant, their crews more interested in trade and exploration than conquest. Yes, he replied, we all found a better way. And in secure vaults across the galaxy, the plans for the universe's most lethal weapon remained safely understood but unused, a reminder that sometimes the greatest power lies not in destruction, but in the choice to turn away from it.